Well, good morning. This is Ian R. Crane, and as you can see, it's a very misty morning here in the Vale of Pickering in North Yorkshire. And this is the first day of autumn. The equinox was shortly after 9 o'clock last night. So we are now officially in the autumn season, and we got a bit of a baptism last night because temperatures dropped down to around about 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. So people were feeling a little chill this morning, to say the least. Well, this morning, as I hope some of you have seen, there is a pop-up protest at Sky Scaffolding in Whitby. Sky Scaffolding delivered a couple of lorry loads yesterday, and obviously they, unfortunately for them, hadn't removed the name of the company from the side of the truck, so they of course are today targeted by the protest. And any supplier to the unconventional gas industry will be potentially subjected to pop-up protests until such time as they renounce their contracts with the unconventional gas industry. But it's becoming very, very clear that this is now much more than just about unconventional gas. It's very, very clear that this industry is effectively on point to unravel, to destroy the democracy that has been established in this country over the past few centuries. And the police yesterday, via Inspector Fenton, stated that from this point forward, any peaceful protest will effectively be suspended. And their definition now of peaceful protest is, you can stand in the free speech zone. This is, of course, what Quadrilla tried to do back in March when we challenged them in the courts there successfully, and Quadrilla were not able to get the protest pen enforced by the courts. Had that been successful on the part of Quadrilla, then any peaceful protest at Quadrilla would have been confined to a small area in a cage behind a hedge where nobody could see anything that was going on. And this is following the lead of the US, where over the past few years free speech zones have been introduced. So the US it's a misnomer to call it the land of the free, because there's nothing free in the US whatsoever, least of all free speech. Now, it has to be said that many people believe, of course, that we do not have the same style of policing in the UK as in the US, and it's true. At the moment, the vast majority of police officers are not armed, or not with guns that fire bullets. They're armed with guns that fire electric shocks, although I must confess I haven't seen these on the belts of North Yorkshire Police yet. But yesterday we did witness what can only be described as outrageous, gratuitous aggression towards Vanda. And of course Vanda was subjected to something similar a few years ago at Barton Moss. And I'm pleased to say that we have the irrefutable, undeniable video evidence of the inspector masquerading as a police officer, assaulting Vanda, throwing her to the ground, and then walking away and leaving it to his minions to deal with. An ambulance was called, but Vanda was left lying on the ground for some 2 hours before an ambulance arrived and took her to Scarborough Hospital. I'm pleased to say that she was released last night, and while she is somewhat tender and a little sore, she is back on the case, and she is one of the people at Whitby right now conducting the pop-up protest against Sky Scaffolding. So meanwhile, here it's early in the morning. Breakfast is being served down at the gates of KM8. Hopefully we're going to have a relatively quiet weekend. There's a lot of work to do on the camp, but we are asking that people actually reflect upon what's occurring here in the UK, with particular focus, of course, on what's happening at Preston Road and here at Kirby Misperton in North Yorkshire, where the police, clearly under instruction from government, have been told that they must force through this agenda regardless of the fact that they are just riding roughshod over the fundamental rights that we have earned to peaceful protest. So Articles 10 and 11 of the European Human Rights Convention, which are embedded into British law under the Human Rights Act, are simply being ignored. The government's own guidelines, which have then effectively been lifted by the Crown Prosecution Service, but the government's own guidelines state categorically that peaceful protest may cause nuisance and disruption and may actually incorporate people like sitting down. And it will be for the police to apply their own judgment as to whether or not the intent is to remain peaceful or to escalate to something that is or could be considered as not peaceful. Well, the track record of the anti-fracking community is 100% peaceful, despite the numerous attempts in recent months by the police to incite something beyond peaceful protest. And they're resorting to the dirty tricks. There was 2 people arrested here for obstruction a couple of days ago. One had a small pocket knife at the bottom of her bag, and obviously though there was no charge of carrying an offensive weapon because the blade was well below the legal limit of a blade that you can carry without fear of prosecution, but nonetheless they report to the police that the police report to the press that a protester was effectively wielding a knife. And another protester, I have no idea what he had in his pocket, but the police tell the press that he had a tool in his pocket that could have been used for criminal damage. Well, you know, that's a bit like me suggesting that Inspector Fenton, for example, is a member or is suspected of being a member of a North Yorkshire police paedophile ring. Of course, that's absurd. And it's no more absurd than the police making these outrageous statements to the media in an attempt to demonise the protest. And it's very clear that whilst some of the police here are becoming increasingly uncomfortable about what it is they're being asked to do, particularly amongst senior members of the North Yorkshire community. I mean, these are people that have lived in North Yorkshire all their lives. They're many generations embedded here in the community, and these young bucks full of testosterone and adrenaline are then being told and instructed to effectively just physically remove them. And some are a little more gentle than others. So some are clearly becoming uncomfortable with this, but others, the look in their eyes, it is soulless. Either they have to leave their brain in the locker room when they report to work to be able to do this job, or something else. And of course that something else is very much related to the common purpose reframing behaviour training that is applied to senior officers and then subsequently applied to the more junior ranks of the police force around the country. If I'm introducing you to common purpose for the first time, I implore you to do your own research, as always, and check out the website Common Purpose Exposed. And this is primarily the work of Brian Gerrish and others. And the Daily Mail a couple of years ago pretty much lifted Brian's research and ran, over the course of a couple of days, some full-page spreads showing how common purpose has infiltrated the British establishment. And the role of common purpose is effectively to create chaos to bring about the end of society as we know it. And if that sounds outrageous, just look around you. Look at what's occurring. It's suggested that anybody who believes that the NHS is being deliberately wound down is just a rampant conspiracy theorist. Yet the fact yesterday that it took 2 hours to get an ambulance from wherever to Kirby Misperton is evidence in itself that the ambulance service is struggling with its resources. Because if that's the situation here in a rural part of the country, God forbid what it's like in the inner cities. So this is now much more than just about fracking. It is about the fundamentals of democracy. And as I have said many times, the establishment tries to paint the picture that those who oppose the unconventional gas agenda are anti-establishment. And yet, the vast majority, whilst I'm not denying there may be one or two amongst the broad church of the anti-fracking community, the vast majority of people are fine, upstanding citizens with a track record that demonstrates that they are not in any way anti-establishment. But what they are suddenly realising is that this establishment is corrupt, that this establishment is pushing through an agenda that the people have clearly stated they don't want. And so consequently they feel compelled for the first time in their lives in many situations to actually step up to the plate and actively protest against this pernicious agenda. And people are now doing their research and they're looking at other issues as well and seeing that, you know, they had the wool pulled over their eyes. In fact, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday in his 70s who said that it's only since he came to one of my presentations 3 years ago here in North Yorkshire, where I was trying to encourage people to do their own research about this industry, that he started to look at some of the other issues that I had been talking about. And he said at first it was a little bit too much of a stretch for him, because obviously he was ingrained in the narrative that everything is fine, nothing to see here, keep calm, keep moving along. But he came to me yesterday and he said, Ian, I'm starting to realise that a lot of the other issues that you've been talking about over the past decade plus are very real, very serious, and if we don't actually address them, then what future generations will inherit just doesn't bear thinking about. And we can see this in the eyes of the young police officers. I mean, sadly, they are recruited in many cases because they demonstrate a lack of capacity for independent thought, a lack of capacity to do their own research and come to their own realisation. Because if they did, they might actually question what it is that they're doing, why they're doing it. We know fine well that although a police officer should be able to challenge an order if they feel that that order is unlawful, but we know in reality that that doesn't occur, it doesn't happen, and they just follow blindly. So, here we are, right at the front end of the Kirby Misperton anti-fracking campaign. North Yorkshire Police have attempted to draw their line in the sand and say there will be no form of peaceful protest here beyond standing in a corner and waving a banner as the trucks drive in unopposed onto the Kirby Misperton well site. Well, an increasing number of people from all around the country are starting to realise that this is very, very serious. And as the police themselves have acknowledged that this is early days and that they fully expect the situation to escalate. In fact, one might argue that the police are deliberately trying to escalate it. But, you know, we've been around a while and we're not going to get drawn into anything that is likely to, how should I say, go beyond the bounds of what we consider to be peaceful protest. We certainly won't give the police any real opportunity, or the establishment any opportunity, to claim that the anti-fracking campaign is anything other than a peaceful campaign community. So please do come down. Breakfast is currently being served at the gates. If you're anywhere in the northeast of the county or on Teesside, please go along to support the people at Whitby, who are now holding their pop-up protest at Sky Scaffolding. And if you feel that you wish to come down and have a chat over the weekend, there'll be people at the gates here monitoring what it is or isn't that Third Energy are doing. And then we'll be at the camp, and we have plenty of work to do at the camp. Obviously, you know, during the week now, we are full on at the gates here or elsewhere. So, you know, we have to do the housekeeping at the weekend. So we do need help. We have some roadway being delivered, courtesy of Ecotricity. Some temporary roadway to put down to address the issue of the mud. So you know, we have some building projects to finish, and then there's the basics such as clearing the trash and getting that off to the local tip. So, you know, whilst we're on the front line here, there are still the basics that need to be taken care of. And we know that we do have a lot of support, and we see that, you know, from the comments. And, you know, whatever it is that you do, whether it's sharing information, and by the way, Facebook are now starting to flag our live stream post from Kirby Misperton as spam. Fortunately, at the moment, they're giving people the opportunity to decide for themselves whether it's spam or whether it's okay. So what we ask is, if you do see this message come up, please click on the fact that it is okay, and maybe we can delay Facebook from censorship for a while longer. So whatever it is you do, if you're sharing information, if you're sowing the seeds out there, please remember, always encourage people to do their own research, because it's only when people realize the truth for themselves that it effectively enters into their life force, and then they have the opportunity to decide just how active or inactive they're going to be. We really appreciate all the support we've had. We've had wonderful support here from the community in North Yorkshire. People who are experiencing close contact with the authorities and with the establishment for the first time, and I regret to say they are truly shocked by what they see. But this is a battle not just for the ecology of the country, but for the fundamental right to peaceful protest, which is one of the basics and basis of our democracy. So I look forward to sharing with you over the weekend. I'm sure we'll have the opportunity for some live stream during the day, and I will endeavour to give an update, live stream update again this evening. And for those watching yesterday, we have established beyond any doubt whatsoever that yesterday I was indeed filming on a public footpath, and tonight I will endeavour once again to film from the very same public footpath, and we'll see whether the security have actually done their appropriate homework and will leave me in peace this time. So thanks for joining us, and follow and share, and we'll catch up with you hopefully in the flesh in the not too distant future. Catch you later.